Hello and welcome to the Tech and Sports podcast. Tech and Sports is a show about how technology is revolutionizing all the major sports as well as health and fitness. You can find it on your podcast service of choice. My name is Alex Radu, and I'm here with the phenomenal Mandy Kovacs.
Hello.
And glorious Paolo Del Nobleto.
Hello.
Today we'll be discussing whether or not performance-enhancing athletic wear should be illegal, plus all the biggest news in sports tech from the last week. But before we get into that, just a little bit of housekeeping. As always, we would really appreciate it if you would review and rate the Tech and Sports podcast on iTunes and Google Play, or wherever else you get your podcasts. It really does help us grow the show, and we really appreciate all the support so far. And if you missed it last week, do you have a topic that you'd like to see us explore on the show? Did we miss a news story you think we should cover? Or do you have impossibly hard trivia that we could answer? Just email us at techandsports@itwc.ca, and we'll be sure to incorporate it onto the podcast. Mandy, where can they email us at?
techandsports@itwc.ca.
Awesome.
Nailed it.
All right, and with that, sit back and relax because the Tech and Sports crew is entering the game. So Mandy, the news.
All right. So our first story of the day is the fact that Amazon has partnered with the NFL to help power the league's new next-gen stats platform, which will launch at the beginning of next year's 2018 season. So to back up for a second, you may not have heard, but the NFL has put tracking chips in all official game balls as of this season. And while none of the stats are being used in officiating and none of it is public, the trackers have yielded very useful player performance information that the league is now studying and teams can use in practice for strategic purposes. So these trackers can help identify things like distance covered, speed, and acceleration, but to help turn that data into useful advanced stats like that, the NFL is now putting all of this information into a machine learning and data analytics powered platform built by Amazon Web Services. So next season, this data will be shown to fans online and on TV broadcasts and hopefully help referees with in-game calls. As part of this deal, AWS will become an official technology provider of the NFL. And it's also worth noting that AWS also powers StatCast, the statistics platform for the MLB. So they're really trying to grow their presence in the sports world. What do you guys think?
So I was actually in Las Vegas for the AWS reInvent conference, and the CIO of the NFL was on stage, Michelle McKenna Doyle, and I thought she was terrific because she was able to break down the technology and game film too. So they showed this one play between during a Thursday night game between the Bills and the Jets, and the way the next gen powered stats are going to work is, and this is why I think it's going to be fantastic for the viewer, especially, is they showed a play where Tyrod Taylor was going back to pass and he threw a ball that was, I think, a 12-yard completion. So she broke it down and said, okay, start from here. At the start of the play, what is the success of this formation, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a trips left formation, which, for those people who don't know what trips left is, 3 wide receivers on one side, okay? Okay. The left side, obviously. And so, so that had a 45% chance of success, right, according to the Next Gen Stacks. And then they start to play. So when Tyrod Taylor goes back to pass, he's ready. He sees his man open. Then they stop it again. And now you look at it again, and there's a 75% chance that he will have a successful play. And he did, because he threw a 12-yard pass to, I believe, a wide receiver named Holmes. And I thought that was really cool. And I think that will definitely add to the geekdom of the NFL that's already there.
That's fascinating.
I think it's also, we always talk about how to quicken up sports like football. And if you do have sensors in places like balls, you don't have to waste time going over video replay for like, oh, is the ball on the 1 yard line, the 2 yard line, or was
Did it break the plane? Did it break the plane? Yeah.
Yeah, because you can just look at the sensor and be like, yeah, across the line. So it did.
Well, that's the thing that they haven't confirmed, though, is whether this is actually going to be able to be used by the officials in games. But I mean, I really don't see why not. You know, it makes sense.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. All right, and Paolo, I think you also have some news on how 2 NFL teams are using analytics to improve their records.
Well, one is.
All right.
It's a tale of 2 analytics department, one from the Jacksonville Jaguar and another from the Cleveland Browns. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated wrote about this last week, and it got me thinking about the use of big data and how it's applied to sports. So first, here's some background. In late 2014, the Browns announced the hiring of the Moneyball genius Paul DePodesta of, the Oakland A's of Major League Baseball fame, and he's heading the Browns analytics department. And at the time, the Browns were given a lot of credit by going outside the box and bringing in, unheralded data, brain in baseball, and to see how, DePodesta could apply it to football. Now, under the radar, the Jacksonville Jaguars also got their analytics department going, and the way they did it was to bring in some resources from team owners, Shahid Khan's True Media company. Now, both teams are awful. The Browns have gone 4-43 during that stretch, and in the last 25 games, they've only won 1. And so far this year, they're 0-10. The Jags, on the other hand, are a little bit better, 18-40, but they're 7-3.
They could make the playoffs.
They can make the playoffs. They're in the playoff hunt right now. They're leading their division, and if playoffs started today, the Jags would be the 3rd seed in the AFC. So in the Breer story, what I found interesting was the approaches of both the Browns and the Jags in terms of how they use the data. So for the Browns, they used it for drafting players, right? The Browns have had an amazing 8 first-round draft picks since DePodesta took over. Here they are: Justin Gilbert, Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, Danny Shelton, Cameron Irving, Corey Coleman, Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers, and David Njoku. Do any of those names ring any bell?
I mean, I know Johnny Football, but not for good reasons.
That's right. So Gilbert is an bust. He's out of the league. He's also been suspended for drug abuse. Need I say more about Johnny Football? Hopefully he'll star for the Hamilton Tiger Cats next year.
Funny.
Yeah. Shelton is still on the team, but he's not a star. Irving might be a bust. He's no longer with the Browns and is learning a new position. Coleman, you're going to love this one. He's a wide receiver, drafted 15th overall. The problem with him is that he has 2 broken hands, which is kind of tough to play wide receiver.
It's bad to laugh at.
We could have rebuilt him in the last episode with Kevlar.
That's right. Now, Myles Garrett is a stud. He's a generational player, drafted number 1 overall, but he's as easy as a pick as Connor McDavid is. Peppers, a highly touted college star, not as impressed this year, and Njoku is basically just a backup to an undrafted player at tight end. Meanwhile, the Jags are using their data department to augment the scouting team too. But what I found fascinating is this team is using data to make on-field decisions, just like what you showed with Next Gen Stats.
So they're not using it for drafting. They're using
a little bit for scouting, right?
But it's not the main role.
The main role. This is why I think it's a tale of two analytics departments. One is using it just to draft players. The other one is using it to make on-field decisions. This is what I find fascinating about it. So the Jags are, I don't know if you noticed, I don't watch a lot of Jaguars games, but they're going on 4th down a lot more this year, and they've converted 68% of the time, including a great 30-yard pass in last Sunday's game. In 2016, they did it 40% of the time. Now,
that's a huge improvement.
It's a huge improvement. So they're making their first downs by going for it on 4th down based on what their analytics are telling them. But they're actually punting less because they're looking at the probability of down and distance. And plenty of you guys play Madden video games, and what do the Madden video games player do on 4th down?
You punt it.
No, they never punt on 4th down. They never do. When you play the game, they never punt on 4th down, no matter if it's like 4th and 25.
Okay, well, that's because that's,
no matter the situation, it's not real, exactly. But they just don't go for it, and they're still successful. And so, we here at Tech and Sports Podcast, we always talk about the probability and the use of data you have. And it seems to me that the teams generally use it for players, but maybe they should take a look at what the data is, what they use in business, which is make key decisions. Maybe it should be for on-the-field decisions.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, we're not analytics heads by any means, but if it's working, why not?
Exactly.
All right, and so next up is news that Facebook is really getting on board with sports streaming. We've seen Twitter and Amazon sign deals with various major leagues to stream games, and now according to the Sports Business Journal, Facebook is currently hiring an executive specifically to negotiate sports deals. So apparently whoever gets this job will have a budget of a few $billion, billion with a B, which is enough to afford at least a few streaming services. So, I mean, stay tuned for more news on that. And I mean, there aren't many details available, but Alex Pala, we've talked a lot about cutting the cord, and we've said that we wouldn't because cable TV is still generally the best way to watch sports. But what if the biggest social media site streamed all Lakers games or Leafs games, and you never had to miss anything, you never had to turn on the TV?
Well, look at DAZN.
Right, but I feel like Facebook has a lot more resources to make this more successful.
Well, the problem is, too, though, is you look at Twitter. When they had Thursday Night Football, that didn't exactly blow up. Though I don't know if Twitter's the best platform for that. I think Facebook might be a much better platform because Twitter's audience just is not as big. But what's really interesting, I think, about what's going to happen with all of this is kind of just further proof that Facebook and all these big like Amazon, all these sites, they're going to start gearing up for when all of these TV deals are up, and I think the NFL's is the next one to go up, and I think that's in 2021. So that's going to be when the real bidding starts to happen, because right now these are all just like side deals and stuff like that for
true.
you can stream for this, but that would be huge if Amazon won to beat out the NFL for from ESPN or something.
Yeah.
Well, or imagine like if Netflix, and now you have to like stream your games.
Yeah,
I think. It's a new frontier. I have no idea where it's going to go, but it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to involve a lot of money.
Maybe we'll look at this in our predictions episode in a couple weeks. Okay, and then now I have a double whammy in education sports news. Harvard and the NBA have teamed up to launch a semester-long program designed to teach current and former players about business with the help of MBA students. And similarly, the Boston Celtics and GE have launched a mobile lab called Brilliant Career Play that is focused on helping students across Massachusetts middle schools learn about STEM careers, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it's basically a traveling education program that goes to various public schools throughout the state, and it teaches students about things like being a software game developer, how to use tools like 3D printing machines, and how to use sensors in clothing, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so that's I just think it shows just the culture of what the NBA is right now, especially because you have the best team in the world centered in Silicon Valley, and it's like almost every week we're talking about an NBA athlete investing in one company or starting a new platform or doing this, doing that. Like, they're all very proactive in promoting their brands, because I think the NBA players realize that they have all these brands. And they're all just smarter too. Like, you don't see all these kids coming out and doing all these like really scandalous things in the NBA. And that's pretty impressive because they're all somehow media trained at like 21.
Yeah. They're all really aware of their public image and their public brand, I think, and they want to build
prep
that.
schools?
No, not really.
No?
Not necessarily.
Okay. I mean, like, Joel Embiid came from Africa, so.
Well, no, not. I was just thinking more of LeBron James, but anyways.
All right, and our last story in health and fitness news. A study done by the University of Colorado Boulder proves that Nike's newest shoes, they're called the Zoom Vaporfly, actually reduces energy use of up to 4% while running. So Nike did fund this study, but the authors did say that in no way did the company influence any results. And I think this is fascinating and really opens up a whole debate about whether these shoes should be allowed in competition. All right, and for our last story of the day in health and fitness news, a study done by the University of Colorado Boulder has proven that Nike's newest shoes, called the Zoom Vaporfly, actually reduces energy use of up to 4% while running. So Nike did fund the study, but the authors say in no way did the company influence the results. And I mean, I just thought this was really fascinating, and it really opens up a whole debate about whether these shoes should be allowed in competition, if it actually can reduce how much energy use people have when they're running. And it also segues nicely into our discussion topic of the day. But first, Paolo, you got some impossible trivia for us.
Right. So we're
maybe possible today.
Maybe possible. So we're talking about performance enhancing athletic wear. But the first time I ever heard of performance-enhancing drugs came in the 1988 Olympics. And this great Canadian sprinter won the gold medal, beating his arch rival from the U.S., Carl Lewis, only to be taken away a day later because of performance-enhancing drugs. Can you name who this Canadian
Oh, no.
sprinter is?
I mean, like you know
I
that
know I know this.
you know that I will not know this as someone who grew up in the U.S.
Well, you would have watched the Olympics.
Well, I know, but
Oh, actually, you wouldn't have watched
I
the
was
Olympics.
born six,
We were not
I was
alive.
born 6 years after the.
You were born 6 years later, but this was a major international story.
I mean, I feel like I should know it,
I
but I don't.
definitely know it, and now I can't put my
But-
finger on
Okay.
what his name
Maybe
is.
it'll come to you later.
That's right.
So we'll get to the answer just after our topic. So, but again, before we start that, just want to remind everyone that if you have a topic for us to discuss, please email us at techandsports@itwc.ca, and we'll be sure to talk about it on the show. So this week we're building off our topic from last week on the cyborg athlete. Today we'll be talking about whether or not performance-enhancing athletic wear should be illegal. We each have a piece of athletic wear we're each going to go over, and then we'll dive into whether it should be allowed. Paulo, how about you start with yours?
So the story I have is about skate blades, hockey skate blades with a lithium-ion battery that heats up and provides basically you're skating on a clean sheet of ice. So it was initially put out in 2007, tried out and failed. But after 5 years of development and millions of dollars of research and design, the Thermablade is finally ready to hit the market. It's a heated skate blade that allows players to capitalize on easier ways to keep skates sharp and feel like you're skating on a fresh sheet of ice instead of chopped up ice, which most NHL rinks are. The lithium-ion battery keeps for 75 minutes on the ice, while charging is less than 2 hours. So can you imagine a double overtime game? And you need to charge your skates.
They better have a quick charge option.
Yeah, just like a quick charge in between intermissions.
Yes, exactly. So the battery heats up the skate runner, creating a warm blade that acts and reacts to the ice for a better glide, faster movement, sharper turns. So 4 players have tried this in the NHL with limited success. And one of the things that surprised me, but then later after I thought about it, shouldn't really surprise me. One of the players was an enforcer. So these are 4 anonymous players. One was an enforcer, which leads me to think that, if you're a great skater, you don't really need this. But if you're like on the fringe, a marginal player, then you're gonna use this to get that edge that you need to compete in the NHL. So think aluminum bat, aluminum rackets. Why don't they have aluminum bats in baseball? Because it would dramatically impact the game. But they did it in tennis. Anyways, that's what I have.
Interesting.
Andy?
Yeah, so I was kind of looking at what Nike has developed over the last couple years. It's called Aero Blades, and basically they're tiny 3D printed teeth with each one shaped like a cresting wave that can be strategically placed on a runner's body to improve the flow of air around an athlete. So they come in tape form, and athletes can really stick it wherever they want, as well as arm and leg sleeves. And so these things are made out of recycled polyester, and they're put on stretchy, breathable material that can be sticky depending on how you want to go. And it reduces drag and energy expenditure. And with so many races coming down to not just seconds, but like literal milliseconds, I mean, this is incredibly powerful technology. They've started showing up on jerseys across various track events over the last year or so since they came out last March. And notable names that have used them include Ashton Eaton, who's a decathlon star who won gold in the last year's Summer Games in Rio, as well as Mohamed Farah, who won the men's 10,000 meter race in 2016 as well. And what's interesting is that the Canadian track team is also all using them, and they use them in Rio, so it's not really a one-off thing. And in fact, Melissa Bishop, she set a new national record in Rio while she was wearing the tape in her marathon that she was participating in. So there's been a lot of discussion around this. It hasn't been banned yet. Whether it will, I'm not 100% sure. But
have the majority of people who are winning medals and stuff now, are they wearing them?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but like I mentioned, Ashton Eaton and Mohamed Farah, they both won wearing that tape.
Well, Eaton and Bishop are like top of their game.
Melissa's not. Melissa Bishop did not medal in Rio.
She did not medal.
But she did set a national record.
That's right.
Yeah.
She did not medal, but she was one of the favorites.
She was. That's true. She fell, I think, or something.
I think she did.
I remember watching that. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know. It's very heartbreaking. So the question is, and it's just like with these skate blades. Sorry, when we get to Alex, then I'll pose the question.
So just kind of building off that, because except this is a banned version. We all remember the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing, where swimmers kind of just went bananas. It was an amazing tournament where world records in the sport were shattered, but there's kind of an asterisk on it because of the bodysuits they were wearing. So they're these high-tech swimsuits that were made by Speedo, and they're made from a fabric composed of woven elastane, nylon, and polyethylene, and were designed with NASA's wind tunnel testing facilities and fluid flow analysis software.
That's crazy.
The result was a swimsuit that reduced skin friction drag by 24% more than the previous Speedo swimsuit. The suit also allowed for better oxygen flow to the muscles, and it forced the body to hold a more hydrodynamic position that repelled water and increased flexibility. It also featured vertically stitched seams to minimize fluid resistance, and the seams were then ultrasonically welded to further reduce drag. And then there was even newer versions of it that were made in conjunction with ANSYS, an engineering simulation software provider, to make a version of the suit with patented core stabilizers and internal compression panels. So that's the definition of like a high-tech piece of athletic wear.
Yeah, I think I remember watching a video, and it actually took these swimmers like literally 30 to 40 minutes to actually put on these suits because they were so tight. They needed the help of like all of their trainers. It was like a whole team experience.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so as you would expect with these swimsuits, the impact was immediate. In the 17 months that the LZR racers were on the market, more than 130 world records were broken, to the point that in Olympic events, only 4 world records remained from pre-2008.
Wow.
So FINA, the international governing body of swimming, voted that bodysuits would no longer be allowed, requiring athletes to show more skin. So FINA said that men's swimsuits may only maximally cover the area from the waist to the knee, while women's from shoulder to the knee. So this leaves things like jammers and the knee skins, which also have LZR racer versions, but it's not as effective if it's only part of your body. So this is kind of it's the way more extreme version of, I think, the what Nike's doing, and then also the ice skate blades.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, yeah, because that basically made you float on the water.
Yeah.
And so water is a hard object, right? So you're just skimming through the top of it, so you're going to go faster instead of like going into it. Not that I'm a swimmer. You're a swimmer. You can probably talk about it better than I can. And so do you, Mandy. But anyways, yeah.
I don't know. It's okay. So this is my perspective on it, because I mean, like, I've always been an advocate for fairness in sports, right? And you want it to be about like the best going against the best and duking it out until the best wins, right? But I mean, it's also never been that simple. There's always cheating. There's always been doping. I mean, we've seen it with Russia being banned from the 2018 Winter Olympics now. All of their athletes who are clean have to compete under a neutral banner, which is crazy. But so like sports have never been purely fair. I mean, you can also account injuries too. When an athlete's hurt, it doesn't matter what they're wearing, they're gonna lose probably, right? But so like at this elite level, it's not even really about fairness, because I mean, everyone that serious about a sport that is at an Olympic game will also be up to date on all of these advancements. They're going to be using all the best technology they possibly have to be better, because it is games of milliseconds and millimeters and whatever else you want to use measurements for. And I mean, they want to win, so that if anything is going to give you an edge, why wouldn't you use it, especially if everyone is using it?
So it's an interesting kind of concept, because you could argue the point that if, like, let's say if every single person was wearing one of these swimsuits, which they were, except for the Japanese team, I believe, because they had sponsorships. Although I think there was like some workaround where they were still able to use them and choose their own swimsuits. But if everyone's using it, and it's like it's not a secret, everyone just uses it, then it still relies on skill, because the technology puts everyone on just a higher playing field than whatever.
Right.
But then you can also argue that people like Michael Phelps are more impressive when they're not wearing all this technology, because then you're like, this guy is literally a freak in nature. And it's not just the technology that's propelling him forward, it's the fact that he is quite literally a human fish.
But again, if everyone's using it, though, then it doesn't really make a difference. Everyone's still on the same level playing field.
Yeah, like that's my whole point here is with Eaton and Bishop, they would have probably won anyways without that athletic advancement. And I think Michael Phelps would have won anyways with or without the bodysuit. I know he didn't wear one, but...
well, he did in 2008.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
So he was in. Oh, I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
literally everyone.
But again, every single other swimmer was also wearing.
But there's
it,
got to be
so.
a reason why they banned that.
I think it's just it comes down to other competitions that aren't in just the Olympics, because you can be sure when it comes down to the Olympics that everyone's.
But I think also too the fact that so many records were shattered.
I think they got scared.
And then
quite
all
frankly.
those other athletes that did it the old-fashioned way. Think, hey, they're putting on bodysuits.
It's kind of these extremes, because right there it's like that's not necessarily the ice skating blades. That's not necessarily going to help Connor McDavid too much.
No.
Or make him better.
No.
But like these made everybody better in a dramatic way. Like only 4 records were like available pre-2008 after
Right.
this. So that's an insane amount of records. So that's just like so.
Well, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
right? All those previous athletes that held those records without the bodysuit.
Exactly.
It's not fair to them.
And it kind of diminishes their accomplishments.
Yeah, and then like I mentioned the aluminum bat, right? If you had an aluminum bat, well, Giancarlo Stanton would have hit over 100 home runs.
Yeah.
Is that really fair to Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Barry Bonds, you name it?
I mean, I also kind of want to play devil's advocate to, I guess, my own points. But think about, too, all of this technology has got to be expensive. They probably only get it through sponsorships. And I think that these international federations do, to an extent, take into the fact that people coming up, like you kind of have to be from an upper middle class type of neighborhood or family to really afford all of this. And that would really increase the discrepancies between, kids that are trying to get grants or that sort of thing, being able to afford all of this based on the kids whose families can right away.
Exactly. So this skate blade, and just the skate blade, not the boot, is $399
Wow.
US.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes to the point of like we always kind of look at all these sports, like specifically run track and field and swimming in the Olympic perspective, because that's when they're most popular. But the reality is that's only once every 4 years, and there are swimming competitions that are enormous. There are track competitions that are enormous, throughout every single year.
And those are fairly affordable sports, too, right?
I guess, sure.
You can go to a public pool. You can go
Sure.
to a random track and field thing through school.
Yeah, so it's just, it ruins the kind of, I think, overall perspective, because in the Olympics, every single person's going to be outfitted with the same type of technology. But that's one tournament. You're not going to have, like, some underdog come up and be like, and have the same access to, that everyone else does.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our discussion today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you like it, remember, please rate us or give us a review on whatever you use to listen to Tech and Sports. If you want to suggest a topic or a not-so-impossible trivia question, you can email us at Alex. Go.
Tech and Sports at itwc.ca.
Yeah. Speaking of impossible trivia,
Did you get the answer?
I don't remember his first name, but Johnson.
That's right.
Right?
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson.
I
Nailed
think
it.
this is the first time where the gap in between the answer and the question actually helped.
I think so. Because the more I thought about it, I was like, I know this guy's name. I've read about it in history books.
Awesome.
Yes.
Right. Okay, and you can find us on Twitter as well. I'm at Mandy V. Kovacs. Paolo?
Paulo CDN.
Alex?
Alex T. Radu. And
Perfect.
Paulo, I believe you.
Yes, I'm. It's almost Christmas time. I wish everyone there the best of the holiday seasons. I usually take the rest of the year off at around this time, so I'll be joining you in the new year. And I wish you all Happy New Year for all our Tech and Sports listeners. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.